Welcome back to the Masters of the Universe Classics Director's Commentary with me, Scott ToyGuru Neitlich. Today, we're going to talk about secret identities. And no, I'm not talking about the secret identity of Superman. I'm more talking about the secret identity of He-Man and She-Ra, better known as Adora and Prince Adam. Prince Adam not pictured here, but Princess Adora pictured here, and that's because this is the director's commentary on the Adora action figure. That was our first figure from January 2010. We made it to our second full year. Now, there's a big reason we had Adora in this slot. We knew that adult fans really wanted female characters. This wasn't a line sold at toy stores to kids and moms, so we were able to get way more females into this line than you might see with a typical retail toy line that also has to appeal to kids and moms, and boys tend to see themselves as other boys, hence male figures sell better to them. Now, we did do Teela, as you saw, but it really was She-Ra and the Princess of Power characters that fans wanted. That was going to really open up the female, avalanche of characters. Now, something happened in 2009, though. We did have Adora slotted in originally as the December 2009 figure. This was both going to get two females in year one, Teela and Adora, as well as check off that Princess of Power box for year one. But as things went, it all went back to Merman. Damn you, Merman! Merman was running late, and because Merman was running late, it sort of set off an avalanche that affected the entire rest of the year. Now, we really wanted to keep monthly figures in place, and luckily, at the time of Merman running late, we had Faker kind of as a backup. He was developed as our New York Comic Con exclusive for year one, because he basically needed no new tooling and was easy to get to market quickly. But because we had him, we could slot him in as a monthly figure in place of Merman running late. So that did achieve the goal of having a monthly figure, but as I said, it was a domino effect, and it basically, every figure for the rest of the year now got bumped by 1 month. So as an example, Scareglow was supposed to be the October 2009 figure. Well, why would we make a spooky, scary skeleton the October figure? I have absolutely no idea. But because he got bumped from October, he then shipped in November, so the Halloween connection was gone. And at the end of the year, the figure that was supposed to be the capstone to the first full year of Masters of the Universe Classics, Princess Adora, well, she got bumped not only out of being the capstone figure, but she got bumped entirely out of 2009. So she became instead the January 2010 monthly figure. So, we got to her, just not as quickly. And even though it was only 1 month difference, it was an entirely different year. So that brings us to the whole my secret identity, and the fact that we were doing the Adora figure, the secret identity of She-Ra, honestly, before we did She-Ra. Cue gasps from the crowd. Let's take a quick look through toy history at some secret identity figures and how they were released, because that's going to play into the why of having an Adora figure, and having her ideally have been the final figure for 2009, but at least becoming the first figure for 2010. So as we slowly scroll down Prune Face here, I chose this because it had the free Anakin Skywalker offer. So yeah, I kind of count Anakin Skywalker as the secret identity of Darth Vader. I mean, today, every kid from here to China knows who Anakin Skywalker is, but back in the day, they didn't. So first he was a mail-in figure, and then eventually he was released on a single card in the Power of the Force 1, as opposed to Power Force 2 line with the awesome silver coin. So that was kind of how you got your first Star Wars secret identity figure, first through a mail-away, and then eventually he became one of the last figures. So, but, he was not the only secret identity figure that was made in the 80s. This was actually kind of a ongoing theme for a lot of superhero figures. And yes, I do really love how it should have ended. If you haven't checked out their channel, definitely check that out, because they have some awesome secret identity jokes. Clark Kent, Superpowers, Also Kenner, basically same deal as with Anakin, except this figure was never released as a single card. He was only available as a mail-away. Prior to both Anakin and Clark Kent, Mego did the same thing. They did a secret identity set where you basically got heads and outfits that you could put on your Batman, Superman, Robin, etc. figures to transform them. Peter Parker. So that brings us back to Masters of the Universe Classics. Now, obviously, She-Ra and Adora needed to be two different figures. We weren't going to pull this off with a whole Mego outfit kind of strategy. So they had to be two distinct releases, and they were going to each require their own tooling, their own accessories, their own outfits, and their own head sculpts. The Adora head sculpt wasn't going to work for She-Ra, and the She-Ra head sculpt wasn't going to work for Adora. But the great thing is that this was an online toy line, and we could pull that off. We could even sculpt Adora so that her sword would fit into the back of her tunic, which was supposed to work for Prince Adam, but, well, that's a whole other story. I'll explain in the Prince Adam video why that didn't work. But it did work for Adora, and she also had a removable holster with her blaster gun, and she wound up being a really, really impressive figure. And, as I said, it helped to add to the lineup of female figures that we were able to offer in the MOTUC Classics line, which we knew fans were going to want. A lot of females. This is not a retail line. It also meant that she was going to help build out, call it the team of the royal family. This was also something we were very conscious of, is that we were building teams as we went, much like building the Doom Patrol or, the Fantastic Four. So really the question is, She-Ra. Why release Adora, the secret identity, before we got to She-Ra, arguably, maybe next to Teela, the most important female character for the Masters of the Universe brand? Alright, so basically, as I said, Princess Adora and Prince Adam were unique characters. Prince Adam was released in the vintage line as a unique release from He-Man. This wasn't going to be a thing where we were going to give you a different outfit like Mego did, where you could dress up He-Man and She-Ra into their alternate identities. They deserved their own figure. And we were able, this again meant that we could get out more females in the line. But really, if you're looking at all the females to release, and we'd already done Teela, we were going to make Adora the second female release in the entire line, and the very first Princess of Power figure, basically supplanting She-Ra in the release order. And yes, when we released her, a lot of fans were like, yeah, this is specifically the opposite of what I asked for. We wanted She-Ra. Why are we getting Adora? I mean, we love Adora. She's awesome, but where's She-Ra? Well, there is a very logical answer to that. In fact, there are multiple logical answers to that. And I guess I'll kind of, in no particular order, this wasn't exactly a popularity contest. Obviously, we knew that She-Ra was a more popular character than Adora. But we didn't want to release the characters just based on who was popular, because we wanted to make sure we had enough releases to have robust years every year. By this time in the line, 2010, we knew that we were really cooking, and we were releasing figures at a good clip. And if you got Adora, well, you pretty much knew She-Ra was coming. If we released Adora first, essentially, the Clark Kent before Superman, the secret identity before we got to the superhero version, would you call She-Ra a superhero? I guess she can be a superhero. She qualifies. No spandex. But you knew we were going to get to She-Ra. Doing Adora was essentially symbolic that Princess of Power was coming, and come on, were we going to do She-Ra? Yes, obviously we were going to do She-Ra. This was not a slight against She-Ra. It was just the idea that by releasing Adora first, it played along with the idea that you kind of always want to release the less demanded version first. Same thing with Night Stalker and Stridor here. That was actually very intentional, having Night Stalker come out first. If we had put out Stridor first, or put out She-Ra first, then you might have thought that we weren't going to get to the other one. Meaning, if Stridor shipped, then the chances of getting Night Stalker were maybe, let's call it 50-50. But by doing Night Stalker first, you pretty much knew that Stridor was coming, because we had the tool, and we'd already released, if you will, call it the less demanded one. I mean, yes, there might be fans that are big fans of Night Stalker and less fans of Stridor, but I think overall, Stridor was the more popular of the two robotic horses. Not just from the cartoon appearances, but just kind of in general. So the same thing applies here with She-Ra and Adora. By releasing Adora first, it sent a message to the fans that, yes, POP is part of the line, and two, obviously She-Ra is coming. The 2000X series did have a She-Ra figure, but never had an Adora. Same thing with the vintage line. So you didn't really know if an Adora was ever going to come. So we did her first very deliberately to send that message that, of course, She-Ra is coming. You knew She-Ra was coming. This was our first big step into the world of Princess of Power. And we didn't want to, release one of, the random characters. I mean, Castaspella or Frosta or something like that. Doing Adora was very symbolic that we were going to really hit Princess of Power hard in the MOTUC Classics line in terms of character releases, but by holding back on She-Ra, it said that she's coming. And part of this was also because of the whole Filmation issue. So I've mentioned in previous videos how when we first started off the line, we did not have access to the Filmation library. Meaning, if a character was only in the Filmation series, they were kind of off limits. But we did have access to the 1987 Licenser Guide, which was great because, one, it had bios for almost every character, down to the Snake Men and the Horde and stuff like that. So a lot of the bios were basically taken word for word, hand-copied by myself, sitting in the back of a meeting hall during presentations. I was kind of backstage, copying all of these by hand. But in addition to the bios, it also gave us correct color callouts, and honestly, it was a gateway into the Princess of Power world, because the 87 Licenser kit, unlike most other vintage material, included both the Evil Horde characters and She-Ra, and a very Filmation-looking She-Ra. Now, normally Mattel's not all about looking for loopholes and to cut corners, but in this case, this was clear that, we did have access to, She-Ra in her general Filmation look. We couldn't do like an animated version, like the Grayskull line that Super 7, did it towards the end there. But it meant that we could look a little beyond just the figures that were released in the vintage line, meaning Adora, who never had a figure in the vintage line, we did have access to her as a character. And one of the reasons we actually added that belt to her was to differentiate her from the strict Filmation look. She didn't wear that belt in Filmation. Of course, you could take the belt off, but in the style guide, she didn't have it. We wanted to kind of be extra safe, and that's why we added the belt. So this basically, all the Princess of Power figures were in the style guide, down to the most obscure ones. Not that Peekaboo is an obscure character, but you get my point. So this was great. Having the 87 Licenser kit was a fantastic way to have access to Adora and to introduce the MOTUC Classics fans to a She-Ra character. Now, Shadow Weaver, a good example of a character we weren't going to be able to do, at least until we got the Filmation rights in 2013. She was only in the Filmation series and was not in the 87 style guide, so Shadow Weaver was still under wraps. But hey, this was now two females. He-Man had his sister and his main squeeze, and, hey, what better two females in the world could there be than, your sister and your main squeeze? Boy, that really didn't go anywhere. But great things were coming, and that was what Adora was all about. She was very much symbolic that Princess of Power was part of the Masters of the Universe Classics line. She was not in the vintage line and not in 2000X, and she was a symbol. That's really what she was. She was a symbol that, of course, She-Ra's coming. If we did She-Ra first, you might have thought you were never going to get to Adora. But by doing Adora first, it basically reassured fans that, of course, She-Ra's happening. We'll get to her. We just want to space it out a little bit. And we got to all of them in time. We got to all the Princess of Power girls, and that was what this was also symbolic of, is that Princess of Power is going to be a big part of this line. So hang in there. We're getting to them. We wanted to get to one in 2009, but like I said, Merman kind of threw everything off. So, our first POP got pushed to January 2010, which is why the first year, 2009, didn't have any Princess of Power. We did try. That was the intent. But, with all good plans, some yolks are broken eggs. Yeah, that's probably a good time to stop talking about Adora.